I went and got stuck in traffic in the suburbs around Columbia, South Carolina for you. You're welcome. That's right. So many of you have seen the videos and the comments about traffic, and your first question is always, how bad is it really, right? A lot of this comes down for perspective. I grew up in suburbs of Los Angeles County, and I don't think it's that bad comparative, but I know so many of you are coming from so many different areas. So I'm gonna show you how bad it really is. And you've probably seen the comments that drivers aren't that great either. So I'm gonna have to pay attention to the road and not continue recording this, but I'm gonna hop over the green screen, and when I do, I'm gonna share with you all the trouble spots around the Midlands of South Carolina, whether it is Lexington, Columbia, around Lake Murray, Northeast Columbia, and others. So you can see if traffic's gonna be an issue for you. All right, so I know we got a lot going on here, and I promise you, I'll break down everything you're seeing right now. And you may have to actually watch this video more than once so you can get a grasp of everything. But I know that a lot of you are watching this on TV, not because I can see you, but because YouTube actually tells me this. But those on the phone, it may be a little bit challenging, but bear with me. And we're gonna talk about data with traffic too, how we rank versus the rest of the country and world. Give you some side-by-side comparisons versus many of the areas you're coming from, Philadelphia, New York, and others, and some of the other areas you're considering, Greenville, Charleston, and others that I hear about. And depending on how this goes in the future, I will do interstate driving. But today we're hitting some of the most complained about roads that I hear about in the Midlands of South Carolina. And again, we will talk about others that we don't hit because the comment section will always light up saying what road I missed, that it's so much worse than this, it's not the right perspective. And we'll talk about the ones that are actually currently being fixed. And to help you, on the bottom, I have Columbia. On the top is gonna be Lexington. And later on, I'm actually gonna disappear, and what will pop up is what used to be the absolute worst road in the entire area from my perspective. But allegedly the 10-year construction project is coming to an end, and I'm gonna show you it. Now, right above me, the one you probably hear about most online is Highway 378, Sunset Boulevard, running through Lexington. So I got started on this one getting off at I-26, right near Lexington Medical Center. You can see Lexington Medical Center right there. So those working at the hospital or those coming off the interstate, this is gonna show you that perspective. Now with this said, this is not the fastest way GPS told me to take. There are plenty of ways around, but that would defeat the purpose of the video of showing the traffic. And maybe one day I'll do a video about ways to dodge traffic. But for all reference, all of these I started just after 5 o'clock to hit what should be peak traffic outside of the one that you're seeing in the corner right now, and I'll talk about that one. I used Google to help me determine when the statistical worst time was, and that's when they all said. Of course, there's a car accident, construction, it's gonna make all of these worse. But again, I wanna give you what you could generally expect during the week. All these were during the week. Later, I will show you some of the morning traffic maps as well. Lastly, anything heading west, I chose overcast days, so we weren't just driving into the sun and you couldn't see anything, which will have an impact on traffic that I'll talk about in some of those later spots that you might see that. Now, because of some of these start times, like on the one on 378, by the time we got closer to downtown Lexington, I feel like it might have lightened up a bit because we got there a little bit later in that 5 o'clock hour. And I actually caught a glimpse of some of the spots that I think could be worse, and I'll point it out later on. Either way, the other one is gonna be Corley Mill Road. Now, the intersection behind where we started, Corley Mill and 378, which we will pass in the other video on the left, I will try and remember to point out, but it is being modified, going to be fixed. But what you're seeing right here is school traffic. Just ahead is gonna be River Bluff High School. 2-lane road. Down that, continuing on, you're gonna hit Saluda River Club and some other neighborhoods. So whenever school lets out, it is chaos. Again, from my perspective and everything I see online, comment section, probably the worst school traffic spot we have. Now, on the right of me is gonna be one of the main roads from Columbia into Northeast Columbia, 2-notch road. We got started where the Columbia Place Mall is, right before I-20. One of the many malls actually right now going through transformations, and I'll talk about that in a future video about all the different shopping centers around the area because I know a lot of people ask. Now, some of these you see will run the length of the entire video, where others will swap out and we'll hit some other traffic areas. So you don't want to leave quite yet, because if these don't impress you, maybe some of the others will be more pertinent to you. All right, so I'm gonna bring up the morning map so you can get an idea of the average issues in the morning, because obviously these were the afternoon ones. And of course, there are some hot spots around the area with school traffic. Highway 6 coming out of South Lexington was a big one for a while with the new charter school. They've seen to mitigate some of it, not as bad, but you can see some red there. You can see kind of some scattered red around, but I definitely feel like the afternoon is much worse than the morning traffic personally. Same with up in Northeast Columbia, as you can see. Let's talk about some other roads that didn't hit the video, because again, I know there's a lot that people are gonna say you missed, but some of these are hopefully gonna be fixed in the near future. Talk about Highway 6. We're talking about from North Lake Drive at the dam, heading out to Ballantyne, and then as it turns, continuing out to Chapin. Now, recently it came out that they are looking at widening from the dam out towards Ballantyne. The current talks are not the next aspect heading out towards Chapin. Now, with that said, before we move on to the next ones, there's a website called COATS. This is a county website where the county puts in the roads that they say need to be fixed. These are the priority and they rank them. And we're actually going to be driving down one of the ones later on that is the number one on that list. And this is passed off to SCDOT. I've always said this is one of the big issues, that most of these are state roads, so you're not only dependent on the county, you're dependent on the state for funding. Either way, the COATS one, the problem with that is it started out as a 35-year plan. So, right, are these going to get fixed in the next year or the next 35 years, which is a long time? But either way, the direct talks have started happening about 6 heading out towards Ballantyne. Now, the other aspect they're talking about is instead of turning Highway 6, 60, heading up towards St. Andrews, they talk about how they can fix that as well. Now, most of you that have driven it know really isn't the issue till you get to the train tracks around St. Andrews. Most of the stuff before moves pretty quickly, and you see the cops out there handing out speeding tickets all the time. Another one, Charleston Highway, basically coming out of Gaston into Casey, and even if you continue on into Columbia, that can get backed up pretty bad too. Augusta Road, Highway 1, heading through West Columbia. When you get down to, for those familiar, where the Hobby Lobby is and all the shopping, can get pretty congested there. Forest Acres. Now, this one did not make the video, but many of you know it can get pretty bad all around the Forest Acres area, especially coming out of Columbia. Out in Blythewood, you have Rimmer Pond. You get to Round Top Elementary when the schools get out, as well as Blythewood Middle when they get out. Now, once I leave, you will be seeing Hardscrabble in Columbia. As long as I've been in real estate, people have warned me about Hardscrabble Road, and I figured out what it meant real quick. I mean, this feels like it's been the longest road widening project I have seen in my life. Seriously though, it started back in 2017. They say it's expected to be done by this summer, and I honestly don't know about that. You'll see as we continue on, but goodness, has it been frustrating for anyone living up there, or anytime I've had to drive up there. For reference, this is the main road from Lake Carolina to the interstate, which is where we got off on Farrow Road, as if you're heading home to Lake Carolina and of course the Falls and other neighborhoods out that direction. And this was of course the going home traffic. During the day, the struggle I've had is that's when a lot of times they're doing the construction. They close it down to one lane, so you get stuck again. And so that's why this has been such a headache for everybody in the area for such a long time. And hopefully will be done here shortly. And I fast forwarded through the beginning part where you've already seen they widened it, because you'll see how much better it is once this is a 4-lane highway, the difference it makes. Now, for the statistics of it, because let's be real, anyone that's lived in more than one busy town knows that everybody on Facebook complains about the roads no matter where you live. Either way, out of 290 cities that were studied in the US, Columbia, South Carolina came in at number 121 according to INRIC's Global Traffic Rankings. They said that the city's congestion actually declined 10% compared to 2023. I know, probably surprising a lot of you. I guess it's due to the expansion of I-20 heading out west and I-26 that we saw heading out towards Chapin that pretty much is just wrapping up. Now, what they saw that in our area in the peak times, the bad times, speeds average 35 miles per hour. Now, the top cities in the US were New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, Philadelphia, Miami, Houston, Atlanta, and Seattle, Washington. Now, to give you an idea, places like Atlanta, they're at 28 miles per hour during the peak time. And it says 50 for their off-peak. And if you've ever been there, it's probably driven up by all the people doing 100 zipping around, kind of messing around. But if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Either way, Miami, Florida, during their peak time, they see 25 mile per hour average. Philadelphia, during their off-peak time, their speeds average are at 36. So almost the same as our peak times. Keep that in mind. During their worst times, they're at an average of 20 miles per hour. All right, so another one that popped up on the top right is gonna be Long's Pond exit off of I-20. We're gonna be turning onto Pisgah Church. If you turn to the left, it's gonna be Long's Pond Road, which will take you over to the Longview neighborhood, Hidden Springs. New York, their average is 15 miles per hour in the peak, with an off-peak slower than us at 30 miles per hour. So for those coming from New York, your good times are worse than our bad times. Again, perspective goes a long way. Now, you may say, of course, Brandon, those are some of the busiest cities around the country. I would hope that you'd be better than them. But let me give you some perspective of some neighboring towns and areas that I know I hear a lot of you talk about. Now, this is pulling from worldwide statistics, where we ranked in that one 613th in the world of the cities they researched. Number 27, Nashville, Tennessee. Number 105, Charlotte, North Carolina. 165, Tampa, Florida. 185, Charleston, South Carolina. Number 228, Raleigh, North Carolina. Number 263, Orlando, Florida. Number 320, Greenville, South Carolina. 343, Fort Myers, Florida. 379, Savannah, Georgia. 477, Lakeland, Florida. Now, behind us, one of the ones that surprised me was Myrtle Beach at 624. Now, many of you told me it's the summers that suck. And the winters, it's a breeze because it's this tourist town, right? And I know when we go there in the fall, it isn't that bad. You can get around pretty easy, but in the summer, it is an absolute nightmare. So when you take the average of the entire year, that may be the reason that you're seeing that, because I know a lot of people online complain about the traffic in Myrtle Beach. Now, for a reminder, we were at 613. Now, the other behind us was Spartanburg at 646. Now, keep in mind, Greenville was at 320. So hopefully gives you a perspective of how we compare to areas like Greenville and Charleston. Again, everyone loves to complain in every area, but statistically their numbers are worse than us. So it's not just my feeling and what people say online. Statistically, it seems to be true. And for funsies, the last US city on the list was Cumberland, Maryland at 944. Feel free to check out the list to see where your town lands on it or other towns that you may be considering. All right, so remember earlier when I talked about Corley Mill Road that they were gonna redo the section. This is the one I'm talking about. Now, looking at the graphics, I don't know how it's really gonna fix as you get down towards River Bluff High School, so I feel like that's still gonna be issue, but at least some of this is gonna be mitigated. Leave a comment below. How do you think this traffic actually compares to what you thought, to the complaints online? Is it worse? Is it better? Is it not as bad as you thought? Tell me, leave your comments below. And for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Brandon. My team of local real estate agents have truly been helping people from all over the country relocate right here to the Midlands of South Carolina, Lexington, Columbia, and Lake Murray. So don't hesitate to reach out. That way you don't have to go at this alone. And I put videos out like this every single week. So don't forget to hit subscribe so you can learn about the area. Not just sitting in traffic, trust me, this was by special request. And of course, I do take all of my clients' feedback and your comments as well. But I make videos about the market, new construction that's coming to the area, neighborhood tours, home tours, so much more. Stick around because we still have a lot more roads to hit. As well, remember, we are going to be driving through the area. That is the #1 spot on the COATS list that they have designated needs to be fixed. All right, so coming up this hill here on Sunset Boulevard, I'll tell you, during holiday shopping, it can get pretty bad, which brings up another one I didn't bring up that can get pretty bad, Harbison Boulevard. Promise you, not everyone uses Amazon. You will notice the difference during holiday season around Harbison and over here around Sunset Boulevard shopping. All right, so this other one here that popped up on the top right, this is Highway 6 heading into South Lexington. Now, I live on this side of town. I can tell you they really need to widen the continuing straight so that you have 2 lanes going straight, because that's the real issue. Because what you have, 1 lane going straight, 1 lane turning left, and another going right. And the straight and the left turn lane back up. Now, you can see, we'll go through multiple cycles of this, but I promise you that this can get much worse at peak times, especially once they open the new shopping center to the left over there. That's gonna have the Lowe's, the Panda Express, Chipotle, Dunkin' Donuts, Planet Fitness, and so much more. Now, earlier I told you that I did this drive during overcast time. And the thing you'll miss is what I like to call sunset traffic. Not because it's Sunset Boulevard, what I like to call sun in my eyes traffic. We used to get this in California. This is not just a South Carolina thing. I remember a hill that I used to have to climb on the way home from work in the valley, and when the sun would hit, everybody would slow down, and as soon as you crested the hill, took back off again. And you can get that right here on Sunset Boulevard, what I like to call sun in my eyes traffic. All right, so this video that popped up here is just a little bit of bonus I want to show you that'll make some of you laugh, get a little bit of perspective, especially those coming from big cities like I did. So obviously, like I said, we're going to talk about the interstates in another video, just depending on how well this video does. See if you guys actually like this type of thing of whole bunch of traffic all around. But either way, I was coming back from recording one of these, so it was still in the 5 o'clock hour, and there was an accident on I-20. And again, don't get me wrong, we have a big major traffic spot that we get on the interstates that I'll talk about in that video and show you. And so because of the accident, my GPS is like, hey, take 77 around. So for those not familiar, you have 20 and 26, kind of the main ones through. I-77 kind of loops around, but you know, it's still a main road going to Fort Jackson and a whole bunch of other places. So it's not, you know, an untraveled road. And so I took that, and this is just kind of giving you perspective of during the 5 o'clock hour of what that interstate looks like. This is not sped up. This is real time. And so again, many of you coming from these bigger areas know there is not an interstate like this at 5 o'clock. I mean, I know in California there was an interstate like this at 4:30, at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, even 7 o'clock. And so it just kind of gives perspective of other ways around, and that all interstates are not backed up around our area, because again, I know how bad it can be in certain areas. Wanted to really give perspective for those people, because again, so many people from out of the area see the comments about traffic, but relative to growing up here, I get it. I grew up in a town that grew up, got big, got busy, got congested. So I get it from that perspective. But hopefully this video puts it into perspective for those not from the area. All right, as I mentioned earlier, codes. Right? The list of all the roads that need to be fixed, widened, and updated. And as we pull up here, this is going to be the one that lands at the #1 spot. So it's going to be this corridor here where on the right you have North Lake, Highway 6 coming in, merging to right here, which is considered 378 and Highway 1 together. Up ahead, it will split. 378 will veer right. 6 going to the left, and we're actually going to take that left route there to show you some traffic that can build up, because going to the right now doesn't have that much traffic. Realistically, the traffic you see is kind of coming the other way, and this whole intersection here, as you can see, you got a bunch of lights back and forth with each other, and you can see it kind of backing up on the other side of the road. Either way, after we head down 6 to show you that traffic, we're going to cut back to 378 to show you the other section of this where you get a lot of traffic. All right, so this traffic here, this is going to be Highway 1 heading into downtown Lexington. At the end of this, the reason it happens is because you're driving into downtown Lexington. And of course, interesting, I talked about this in another video, got in a debate with a little bit in someone in the comments section for a reason. So downtown Lexington, as many of you know, 2 lanes going each way with parking on each side, causes a lot of traffic and congestion. People complain about it a lot. Problem is, it's intentional. What do I mean by that? So there is another town in South Carolina, and they used to have a thriving downtown, and people complained about the traffic. So they widened the road and made it so that it was almost like a bypass, and you could walk around the sides and not have to worry about the cars as they came through to mitigate the traffic. Problem is, when that happens and people don't slow down, they keep going and they don't stop in the town centers to shop. And that town became pretty obsolete over the years. And so I hate to say it, there is an intentionality behind slowing people down in these town centers, not only to mitigate accidents, but also to entice people to stop and shop in those areas. I want you to notice something at this split here. This is another one where I learned a little secret workaround. So there's a truck and a boat that's heading 378 towards the South Lake split. We're gonna head down 378 a little bit, but I wanted to show you another traffic spot. As we come down this way, the left lane will back up, which you will realize how long we sit at the red light of how far that can back up. Now, I live straight, so I've dealt with this time and time again. This is gonna be heading to South Lexington. But let me show a trick I noticed while doing this, a shortcut I learned that I now use. All right, so as mentioned, oftentimes you'll see this back up to where we're passing through right now. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, we got started a little after 5 o'clock down by Lexington Medical Center. So I always tell people, I feel like we got a true rush hour. So as we get closer to that 6 o'clock hour, coming 30 minutes down the road here, you can see it's lightened up quite a bit. Either way, if there's an event at the amphitheater, which is gonna be just past this, that'll also help it back up and so much more. But either way, again, this is why I tell people we have a true rush hour, because you see it lightens up pretty quickly. Right, there's that truck and the boat, and you will see where he came from. We're gonna circle back to 378. So I started using that trick myself. Now, where we're turning now, this can get bad too, but I think we missed the worst of it because of, as I said earlier, when we left at 5 o'clock, by the time we got here, you're kind of getting closer to that 6 o'clock hour. Now, when I was coming back from showings one afternoon, I caught some of it. So you can see here from the opposite side of the road how far that can back up. All right, so I switched back to catching up, waiting to turn left back onto 378. Again, this is kind of where I see where the coats part is talking about. That first section earlier where I pointed out where we went to the left and that split, as all of those converge, and then as we make this left here, you'll see, because again, you have light after light after light, and then you have where Highway 1 and 378 split back open there. And so because you have all these main roads, main drags merging together in this tiny section with just multiple lights, it creates all this traffic. I don't know how they're gonna mitigate this, but again, it is the #1 on that coats list. So enough with the traffic. If this wasn't that bad for you, you'll want to check out this playlist here where I actually break down all the areas around the Midlands of South Carolina. So you can see which area is right for you now that you have a good idea where the traffic is and where you might want to live to maybe avoid it